Happy Sabbath, everyone. Very lovely to see you, family. It's been a long week, has it not? And it's also been a lovely, we had a lovely Sabbath last week. Can I have a show of hands if you really enjoyed Ignite? Thank you. So I really enjoyed Ignite as well. And I think the whole idea of that word ignite is to really ignite us to be on fire for God. That's what I believe, and I believe, and that has really ignited me to get up another notch or two for the Lord. Now, what I have to share today is going to be very short and brief, but I think it's very important nonetheless. I think you'll be very interested to know that there are very weird things that are happening in the world today. There have been weird requests that have happened throughout, and I want to point out one in particular. First, it happened about several years ago, and I think you might recall this. There was someone that went on Facebook, I think was, or online, requesting to be, listen, to be eaten alive. Can you remember that? If you haven't, if you don't remember that, then probably this is your first time, but it was very weird, and it happened, and I was thinking to myself, what an odd thing to request. And surely no one would respond to that thing. But lo and behold, there were many people that responded. And finally there was one guy that responded to it, a guy from Germany. And to shorten the story, which was a really gross sort of thing, he videoed the guy killing him and then eating him, frying him, and as he was still alive, cutting himself to death, being killed. The guy was held accountable for that, but it was a consent. I consent you to do that. So they all had this consent and agreement, and the guy went ahead and did the killing, and it was videoed. Now, how many of you want to be eaten alive? This guy willfully did that. I thought it was completely weird and disturbing for the most part. I can't imagine that happening to myself, let alone to someone else. And you wonder, is this the mindset of a sane person? I mean, it's so incredible. The things that are happening in the world today are so insane. The other time I read through an article, and that article said, this is going back more than 10, 15 years, that NASA is planning to inhabit where? Mars. And the early research that they did on Mars was that Mars has a lot of frozen water, but the atmosphere is almost 100% what, do you reckon? Carbon dioxide. Can you live with 100% carbon dioxide? That's what we produce. So they were saying, all right, where can we find something that can start living in a very cold climate, but that can produce oxygen and can take in carbon dioxide and then produce oxygen? So they went to the Arctic and to the Antarctic, and they looked for some algae, because algae living in the ice area, which will mimic the ice water of Mars, will be able to go, they'll plant it, and hopefully over time that algae, or this colony of algae, will get carbon dioxide and take it in and then produce oxygen, and eventually the storage of oxygen will be put on planet Mars. And eventually life will be able to be preserved there. Now, this is what they were thinking. And then they were thinking, well, how will we make that ice go into water? Because we need that to be water, not ice. So they were thinking of several things. We could send a nuclear bomb and blow up the thing and make the thermal heat melt all that water, ice water. Or we could put a very big mirror that will be reflecting the ray of the sun and then putting it onto Mars and then melting all that ice water. So we're thinking up, and I was saying, how stupid these people are. I was thinking to myself. But last year, or 2 years ago, I think it was, a guy from Norway, or I think it was from Denmark. Do you know his name? Well, I've forgotten his name, but he started this project called the Mars One Project. Have you heard of that? The Mars One Project. And so this guy is saying, I want to put the first colony of people, he's a billionaire, first colony of people to inhabit the planet of Mars, when? 2025. First colony of Mars people will be, will colonize that planet of Mars. So, he's put this time frame in place. He says, 2018, what year is this one? 2017. 2018, communication and satellite will be launched. So he'll send all these communication things up to Mars and place it there first. So communication will be settled first. Second, 2020, this is, you know, what we're talking about 2020. In 2020, they're going to be sending Mars One rover will be launched. So after the settlement of the communication will be there, then they'll send up Mars One rover will be launched. 2020. 2 years later, in 2022, they will send 6 cargo space ship launched. So there'll be ships that will be carrying cargo. 6 of them will be launched to bring all these things that they need in Mars. Then 2024, in 2 years' time, 2024, the first group of humans will leave planet Earth. And how long will it take them to travel? 2025 is when the first group of humans will land on Mars. A journey of 7 to 8 months. Now, interesting, because it will be a big task. And it will be an interesting one. Do you know what they call this one mission? It is a one-way ticket. You are not going to come back. You're going to go to Mars and you will live there and then you will die there. It's a one-way ticket. This is the plan that they have. Amazing. So they were saying, we're going to do that. So they sent an advertisement to people around the world. How many people want to go one way to Mars and not come back? Guess how many people applied? 200,000. I better select my adjectives here, my description of those people. But there were 200,000 people that volunteered to make a one-way trip to Mars. Leave their family behind, leave everything behind. It's not worth it. They want to go there. And you know what? Out of those 200,000, they had to select down. They said, all right, thank you for 200,000 people for inviting. Now we will give interviews to only 660 people. So they gave 660 interviews. And finally they cut those 660 interviews. After interviewing them, they brought them down to 50 men and 50 women. Only 50 men and 50 women. Now, it is interesting because I read this in one of the articles which said that 2 of those many people are Australians. And so they said, all right, They had to give several things. They had to train them they have to train them, and they're counting down 100 days to the training time. 100 days to the training time. And you know what they're going to be training them for? 1, personal training, to know how to handle yourself. 2, group training, how you can interact with all the others that you're going to be there in, facing them for the rest of your life in a little closed space. 3, technical training. You have to know what to do. If you don't know what to do and things, then they have to be very selective, because you're going to be the first humans that will be there. Some of the questions they ask is, are you up to cannibalism? Because if the fruit and the food runs out, are you going to be happy to eat each other? Some people, the responses you see online was very interesting. So, no, I'm a vegetarian, I'm not going to do that. Oh, I don't like that idea. How it's like eating your mom and your dad. I can't possibly think about it. People were thinking about that. But the 50 of them, the 50 men, 50 women, they have to look at them. They said the training will be so intense. If one of those people in that group fails to pass that test, they have to start all over again to make sure that they have the right person and the right group going, so that there's no chance of having things destroyed. Now, I want to show you, I want to tell you the climate, or what Mars looks like. Okay? And this is what 200,000 people have signed up to go to. 1, high radiation levels. They're going to an area that's very high in radiation levels. Now, do you know that if you fly frequently, a frequent fly, you're going up 30,000 feet, the radiation is higher up there? Do you know that? So, Uncle Chester, you fly quite a lot, and the radiation has taken effect on the hair. So it is something that you have to understand. You have the amount of flights. When we were traveling up high, it's like getting a shot of an X-ray. That's the amount of radiation exposure. Do you know that? Yeah. That's when you travel up at that height. It's like an X-ray, chest X-ray. Boom. That's the amount of radiation you take. So these 200,000 people have volunteered to go, to give their lives, to go to high radiation levels, to be exposed. All right, number 1. Number 2, the temperature is between 20 degrees Celsius and minus 153 degrees Celsius. So the temperature range is physically from human ability to survive to insanely impossible to survive. 200,000 have said yes. I'll do that. 95% of the atmosphere is carbon dioxide. Frozen water. So they'll have to recycle all that water. So once they use it, it goes into a machine, recycle, comes back. If that machine, recycling machine, doesn't do the thing correctly, they'll be drinking urine. But this is what they are actually saying that they want to do. Frozen water. The landscape is the landscape of a desert. How many people want to buy real estate in the desert of Australia? No sane people do that. Oh, people that are imaginative might have a lot of money to give things to make sure they survive, but that's the barren land they're going to. And they said the living conditions will be cramped, because if you make a big area, you'll have to expend a lot of oxygen, energy, and lots of things. You can't do that. You can't live in a big area, because the oxygenation in that small area will be enough for the number of people that are living there. And they'll be recycling it with plants and all that sort of stuff, is what their idea is. Here's the thing that made a lot of people discouraged. For the first 2 years, no sexual intercourse. So a lot of people are getting a bit discouraged because they said the danger of radiation will be too high. Now, if you have seen children that have been exposed to the atomic bomb in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, have you seen them? Without limbs, with extra limbs and all that sort of stuff. So they said, no, the first human colony must not start with people that have problems with their genetics. So why go there if you're going to be producing 3-armed and whatever kids up there? It is a really strange thing. Now here's something that interested me as well. While traveling there, because you know, when you and I are alive and awake, we'll be drinking lots of water. How much do you think we drink a day? Or we should drink a day? 2.5 liters, yeah, so it's about 2.5 to 3 liters a day. Now, if the 100 people were traveling and they were drinking 300 liters a day, each one, how much would that work out to be? 100 drinking 300 liters a day. That would be about 30,000 liters to be drunk a day by those 100 people. You have to get that water to supply. How can you put 30,000 liters and fly it up there without using energy and all that sort of stuff? The thing is, if you're eating, you eat 3 meals a day. These guys have to eat 3 meals a day. They'll be all before, and how long will it travel? 7 to 8 months traveling. All the stores that they have will be eaten while they're traveling. And you've got oxygen and all these other factors. So what they said they will do is they will keep these people in a deep state of sleep. So before they travel, they will not have a good view. They will be in a little chamber, connected to a life support and fed through a vein for 7 months. Until they get there, then all that sleeping thing will stop, and then they'll wake up and realize that they're in Mars, and then they'll have to get all their thing to get back into action. Brothers and sisters, this is Mars One project. Does it sound enticing to you at all? Brothers and sisters, to me, hands down, Revelation 21, Revelation 22 talks about a land that is far, far better. Beautiful, cheap. Actually, it was very expensive, but it is given to us for free. Do you know how much the cost of Mars One will be? They need about $6 billion. They only have $1 billion. So they're struggling to get some more money to get everything in place before they can go. Everything before they're traveling is not sure. The destination that they're going to is an uncertain place. The place that they'll be living, they'll have to struggle, and there's certainty of dying. There's also certainty that you might have to eat your other member there, if you have to. If they possibly die, if they die, then you'll have to eat their carcasses. It is not an attractive option to you. But I want to promote something, brothers and sisters of Wantok Church. Jesus has paid the price. He has given us a one-way ticket too. There's no point coming back to this earth. But look at the climate of heaven. The light, where does it come from? God's throne. The river, where does it come from? The throne of God. It is pure, it is crystal. There's a tree of life that is across that pure river, and it bears 12 fruit each month. 1 fruit per month. And the leaves are for the healing of the nation. You're not contained in a little spacecraft sleeping while you're traveling to heaven. You will be traveling there, and you'll be looking at all the glory and the beauty of God's creation as you're going up there. It will be a scenic view. And once you get up there to heaven, you will not be entering into a cramped society, an area there, but you will have Jesus himself there, standing there and welcoming you personally. And he'll say, come here. He will not only give you, come through a little area, it will be a gate according to your character, 12 gates according to your style of how you think, your character is, and your not predisposition, but how you are like, on how you think. You'll go through that particular gate. But that gate is made of pure pearl. It's the pearly gates. Huge pearls. That's what you're going to be walking through. Jesus will personally welcome you through that. Once you enter there, you will be walking on what? On gold. And in that city, it will fit more than 92, I think about 92 billion people can fit in that city. How many people have we got on this earth now? We've only got 7 billion people. The size of that New Jerusalem is huge, but the outside of that city, once we come back to planet Earth, as the Bible says, you can make your own fruit garden, you plant it, you build your own house outside the city, but every Sabbath and every new moon, we go into the city to worship Jesus. Do you know that they want to get someone as well that knows in this Mars One project that will be good at communicating to aliens, to study the aliens? Do you know what? The Bible is the most amazing book from the aliens. God himself, we don't know, we can't see God, but he wrote that book right down here for us to see. And when people are struggling to look at aliens to give them advice, God, the ultimate God of the universe, has given us instructions on how to live, how to prepare. You know that personal training, the group training, that technical training, do you know that? We do that every time. The personal training that God is giving us is allowing us to go through trouble sometime. When you have troubles in your life, you say, why? God is training you to be prepared for that place in heaven. It allows it to happen so you can have more faith in him. Group training, how you love your neighbors, how you can live amicably amongst each other, in church and outside the church. When you work, where you work, how are you relating to those people? Are they seeing God through that? That is the group training. And the technical training, God has done that for us. There's no technical thing we need to know. Everything is provided for us by God himself. So you don't have to, and the other thing is there's no limited space. 200,000 can apply, there's space for you. 7 million can apply, space for you. 7 billion can apply, there's space for 7 billion in that city in heaven. And it is free. Have I sold you something? Is it something that you want to? Here's the thing, brothers and sisters. In this Mars One project, there's 100% chance you will die. In Jesus' project, there is 100% that you'll have eternal life. And the beauty of it, brothers, in Mars project, not beauty, the Mars One project, you leave your loved ones and you will never see them again. In Jesus' project, you will be meeting your loved ones again. The blessed hope. When Jesus comes, we'll all go there. I want us to remember that. Are you struggling sometimes during this week to know what direction? Is it worthwhile coming to church? Is it worthwhile doing things for people? Is it worthwhile doing all these little things? I would say an absolute resounding yes. Because the journey we're taking is to heaven. And I don't want us to be discouraged, brothers and sisters, but to be encouraged and to be ignited to move out to get more, because there's plenty good room in God's kingdom. There's no space shuttle that will limit the number of people that will go. He says, if I be lifted up, I will draw all men unto me. Anyone is accepted. He's given it for free. As we finish now, I want you to think, do you want to go to heaven? Is it worth it? A resounding yes on my part. May God richly bless you. Amen.